Something very unpredictable can happen, even if you are cruising. Hi, my name is Luciana. I'm here to talk about all things at sea. Let's cruise. So the year was 2011, and I was doing a cruise that I was really looking forward to do. The cruise in Japan. It's a beautiful time of the year to cruise Japan, and these cruises specifically have many calls in many different cities and some of the islands in Japan. I was really enjoying the itinerary. That specific day I want to talk about, we call at Nagasaki. Something very important you need to know about cruising in Japanese waters. They have specific rules like any country, but those specific rules include you cannot use the satellite for communication. Just the bridge has this privilege. So all the clients and the crew cannot contact their cell phones when they are on board. That's important for my story. So it was a beautiful day, sunny. I grabbed some friends and we went to explore Nagasaki. Beautiful city, beautiful people. We really enjoyed that day. As I normally do, I went back to the ship a couple hours before all on board. And when I was walking down the street, I could see in the end of the street the harbor, and something very unusual was happening. So we had some of the harbor employees outside of the building making signs for everybody to go fast. So literally people like looking desperate and calling us as fast as we can. Honestly, that caught me by surprise. I double checked my time to see if I was late or something like that, and it's still like 2.5 hours for on board. So I start to walk a little bit faster. Me and my colleagues really asking each other like, what's going on? Why they look so desperate for us to embark as soon as possible? I remember when I got in the building, the people is still doing the same thing, like try to rush us through immigration because you need to show your identity, right, to embark on board. And even so, they just look and really pushing us to go as fast as possible on board. When I got on board, I could hear the captain doing some announcements. So you take a few minutes to try to understand what's going on. And the captain saying for safety reasons, they need to move the ship as soon as possible. So they need to embark everybody as soon as possible. And if we have any kind of way to contact any person that's still ashore, to please do so and help them to get all the passengers and all the crew on board. Honestly, I was working for 8 years at that point on board, and that never happened with me. So I have no idea what's going on. So at that point, I make my way to my cabin when I finally turn on the TV, and I was completely in shock. So that was the first thing that I saw. And to understand that happening in Japan was a shock to me, because we are under beautiful weather, everything was okay, everything was fine, and we cannot understand how this was happen in the same country that we are. Okay, so then I realized the distance between the tsunami in the north of Japan and we are Nagasaki, very south, so over 1,000 kilometers distance between where we are and what was happening in the north of Japan, but still a shock. At that moment, the captain did another announcement, say that he has everybody on board, all the crew, all the guests, and he was making his way as fast as possible to deep waters. Because in deep waters, if the tsunami hit us, would be just a big wave, but not something that really impact the life on board. Would be safer for us to be in deep waters, and that's what he did. So he moved the ship to deep waters and stopped. I remember we are not the only one. Also has one of the Cunard ships, I believe was the Queen Elizabeth, also at that position. Both ships side by side, literally waiting in what to do. At that point, I start to realize that my family probably would be very worried back in Brazil. So how to communicate with them? Remember when I told you we could not use our cell phones, we cannot use the satellites in Japan? Thank God the captain also think about that, and very quickly he managed to get permission from Japanese officials to allow us to use our normally satellite communication. And then he make another speech advising everybody to contact their families and the loved ones and let them know that we are safe and everything was okay with us. And that's what I did. I called my mom in Brazil, who was already trying to communicate with the Japanese embassy in Brazil to see if they have any information regards a cruise ship being hit by the tsunami. So of course everybody was worried, but we are okay, we are fine. So becomes what to do now. The reminder of that cruise would be another calls in another Japanese ports, but Japan closed all the ports. Is understandable. They just been hit by a massive tsunami. They need all the resource to be focused to help the people in that area. So kudos to Miami head office at that time, who managed to secure us with other ports of call. We call in South Korea, I believe it was Busan, and in China. And they also managed to change every single passenger flight's details because that cruise supposed to finish in Japan. So they had to be rebook every single one. And they did that. So when the cruise finally finished in the correct date, everybody has their own flight details rearranged by the Miami head office personnel. So was a great service that time from Azamara. They did beautifully. None of the guests had problems, and we continued the cruise. I believe the cruise after also was changed because we should have some calls in Japan again. So they change everything. They concentrate in China and South Korea, and that's what happened. Very unpredictable with me in 2011. And you, do you have any tale to tell? Something very different that happened in your cruise? Let me know in the comments.